This Chuck Schumer thing is making me think if we were sort of like standing around demanding pyramids be made at this point. But I don't know, maybe he's thinking that he's being sort of like an oppositional party or something, where people are supposed to not choose that because it's clearly not going to work, and sort of like admitting that all they do is print out money and that people really have to kind of stop thinking of them as saviors here. Um, One thing about this Charlie Card thing, for some reason, it's just making me think Charlie Card, which is a card that they use here to run the trains and the buses. I'm not sure what that is. Um, I guess a topic discuss about. I'm not really going to call it compassion because I have a different viewpoint of what that is. But in terms of your caring, and understanding that, is it right to keep somebody in that sort of a condition or let them go on to the next cycle? The Duggars are doing the newlywed game that was suggested that people do, and the responses, I mean, I guess it depends on their relationship. Um, if they're sort of not really thinking that the person is doing anything that's selfless or doing anything that's selfless for them, or they don't really view their spouse in that way, um, it is sort of good news that one of the couples has decided to have a vasectomy, apparently, and just sort of deal with the population that we have here already. And hopefully they're thinking about their family upbringing and how much of that is really kind of like you just, because there's so many children in that family, that in order to sort of be either accepted or even noticed, that you marry and begin to have children, and then you're sort of like in the family. Um, I've seen that myself, families that get sort of caught up in that. Um, it sort of, sounds a little bit contradictory to, my basic belief system about the world and what actual jobs are. But people were not actually living outside of the world. First of all, they were living fully in the world. So by that standard, it's sort of like there was nothing else that was encouraged to do but to just have children. And in some of these households, it's not even half a marriage and a home and children, but just you have children, and that's sort of how you get attention and how you're an adult. And perhaps children notice that the treatment of people changes when they have a child, that they are spoken to and viewed in a different way than when they are not having children. And in terms of right now, because of the transition, that I think it's a good time to really think about your family size. And we as a people are not really used to doing all of these things for ourselves. So it's going to be sort of like a shock that we're going to have to get used to. And we, don't want to put that type of stress on ourselves that all of a sudden we have all these clothes that we have to make and we have to, get the food and spend all day long with these children when we weren't used to doing that. Um, that family, I think, actually does do that, but they also had a whole lot of money that other families don't have. And doing the TV show, I think, really encouraged them to continue having children as if they were some sort of a circus act, which is not really good for anyone. I think that they are people who want to be sort of, the right, correct type of people, and they sort of just got caught up in something. And in terms of previously, um, when my understanding of when people came here is they sort of decided to breed their own slaves, um, like having 18 children and things, because then those children would be running a farm, and that's almost like a little city type of thing, um, and not sort of incorporating into our lifestyle here. Um, some of the funny things that I sort of went over when they used to make the thatched roofs and not sort of realizing what animals would do or what happens when you cook inside of buildings that have those types of roofs. And those things are sort of lessons learned over a long period of time that even just if you don't like to clean, that when you live in the outdoors, you're not doing that. I mean, you don't have a floor to sweep when you're living out in the wilderness, and you don't have toilets to clean and toilet seats to put down, and anything in life, I think, you get sort of used to. And if you've ever gone camping and you liked that shouldn't be that big of a transition for you when that time comes. Um, Trying not to sort of be speeding everything up at speed of light pace. Um, it, at 2011, my sort of reaction was just, yay, we're getting the heck out of here. I was not intending to sort of abandon my children. I was in sort of a um, just elation over the end of all of these things, and then wanted to sort of pass on that message. And some of that became confused, I think, as to what my intentions were and what my job is in some of the sort of odd things that were going on, and how that could be interpreted by other people. And just sort of distracted by the TV. Um, in terms of the asking of the questions for the Duggars, um, do they care about that sort of thing? Like, in terms of their meat, would they care about if their mate cared about other people? And here's an example, okay? Not the reason that I wanted a divorce, but it's an example of a man that I would not court or be married to, that would pull up to a McDonald's drive-through window and begin speaking to the people that are working there in a very derogatory manner. Um, I remember it vividly in my mind because it was shocking to me. And I was like, who is this person? And I was very embarrassed by it. And little things like that give you an insight into a person's mind. And I guess I wasn't really interpreting that as reflective of his thoughts about me at the time, but it seems pretty evident by what's happened that I'm not sure in his mind who he thinks are the sort of elite class or something that he is talking down to like that. And um, if he never did that type of work, maybe growing up, that he wasn't going to flip burgers or something. Um, those types of things I didn't actually think about when I was young. I guess I thought, I mean, this guy's coming from a working class family, and I assumed way too much. I didn't know really sort of screening questions, and I didn't actually intend to marry him. Like, I was just going to college and trying to complete that. And he would frequently talk about marriage, and I was kind of like, you know, in my mind, I really don't want to marry you. And women, I think, can actually get caught up in that. And believe it or not, they can actually just marry someone that they don't really want to be with because they don't have the resources or the courage, I guess, in their mind to sort of just be like, um, this isn't what I want, or they want to sort of get away from some dysfunctional family that they're in. So they may marry someone or have a child with someone as a means to get away from that. Um, the I guess that's all I would have to say about that. In terms of selflessness, I don't know if that's a question that you would actually ask someone. Like, so, do you feel that you're a selfless person, or can you tell us some selfless act that you've done? I mean, I think in you know reality, people would sort of just like laugh, like they don't talk like that, you know. Um, I think that it's better to sort of give a topic about someone else and then sort of see what they have to say about that. Like, what do you think about this family that's having all of these children? Is that something, you know, do you like children, or what do you think about that? For me, um, I really like to talk about psychology a lot. That's a great interest to me. And it's not really like a gossip, it's sort of just a pondering about it. And it doesn't mean I'm right, it's just that I like to sort of know, it's of interest to me, what makes people tick. So, that I think is a little bit different than just envy based gossip type of thing. And like, I don't mind going over things about myself either, um, in terms of whatever my psychology is or was, or but what would be another sort of question to ask someone? Um, Selfless acts. I don't know. That would be strange. I would go, are you kidding me? Selfless acts. And are you some kind of like earthy, crunchy person? What is this? But I should do a video about that, like how to avoid marrying Alfred. That would be an excellent video. Like, what was he like and things like that. He was very, very actually closed off and didn't really talk a lot, which somewhat bothered me. Like I begin to get bothered by that when I'm just in a relationship with someone and I'm just babbling away and they don't say anything. Like I like to have some kind of interaction with the person. Um, I don't know if he just was sort of like locked in and had no interest in anything I was discussing, or sort of isn't used to having a chance to respond because his mother was very like she would do like people might interpret I'm doing right now where in actual people around you that she would just sit at a table and talk at you, and then if she asked you something, it was like, oh no, this is like now the attack is going to come because it wasn't really her wanting to know your ideas or thoughts about anything. It was like, boom, and now she shoots that down and that type of thing. So maybe he was sort of used to that and hadn't had a lot of time to really have his own thoughts about things or opinions, or he sort of learned to just be quiet all the time. And his father was very, very quiet. And he would just sit at a table just nodding off like he was on heroin. And like to me, that's not a happy marriage. And she, I think, maybe thought she had a happy marriage, but if I was married to a man and he never spoke, um, I would really start to feel weird. Like, what's going on? Why don't you ever say anything? And, like, men talk. Men have ideas and thoughts about things. They don't just sit and you're sort of like just babbling on for hours at a time. And I actually, I guess, sort of was one of those people that would just sit and not really input into a conversation myself. Um, like, I've spent a lot of time in my life with people sort of talking at me, and it almost feels like it's a counsel session at the time. Like, I remember this when I was a teenager, that I would sort of get that sense, like a person is actually sort of like, coming to me for counsel. Like I wasn't thinking I was a counsel. Like it's not grandiose, but sort of like I felt like a person was just sort of unloading on me, or like actually thought that what I would think might be some sort of good advice for them or something, and I didn't really feel as if I could do that. So I went to a therapist. I I would assume that when I was married, I probably talked a lot because I can't really get a word in edgewise normally. Um, I don't know if he interpreted that as me not listening to him, but when I began not really talking like that anymore, he seemed alarmed by it, like I was always supposed to carry on the conversation. And I don't really like that. Like, I found out when I was seeing that Phil guy that I actually like a man that's a little bit more outgoing. Um, the only problem with that in my life before is that it tends to sort of overshadow me, I guess, and I become more quiet and not really being myself and being my creative expressive self. But I don't know if that's just something that I used to be like or if I would be like that still. But that Phil guy was very talkative, and I enjoyed that. I liked just sitting and listening to him talk. And that actually began to feel like some sort of almost like a counsel, because he began to do sort of like strange things. And I could kind of interpret that he was having some issue with his mother, some sort of an abandonment issue because of odd things that he was doing. But I don't know if I do that like all the time with people, that I would think that would become annoying if you were trying to be friends with me or have a relationship with me, that would become sort of annoying if I'm always analyzing you. Um, I think what happened with that Jen person um, is that I sort of considered that like a relationship. So I wasn't doing that. Like I didn't go into that role when that's probably what I actually should have been doing. That that was a person who actually needed my counsel and needed a diagnosis and not someone to be having a relationship with. So I sort of was not really analyzing her until it became evident that that relationship was not going to work. Maybe that's what I do when I'm in sort of like a romantic type of idea, that I sort of put that aside, and then when it seems the relationship isn't going to work, then I sort of go back into sort of like an observing and counseling. Like for me, I feel that even if a person doesn't want to hear your point of view of, behaviors and things that they're displaying, that in order for you to sort of put out of your mind what has happened in a relationship that didn't work out, is that you kind of need to find out why and find out what's going on with that person, or something within yourself as well, so that you either don't blame yourself or you don't repeat that again. um, I don't know. Sometimes I just sort of think that maybe I'm just really not made to have a relationship. I don't know if the world is just sort of too screwed up, or maybe I am, but I find that I don't really click with people, and I don't. I don't know. I've always sort of felt that I don't really belong here. Like I don't click with the people here, and they kind of like know it, and they don't like me. And I've had an instance once where I used the word animosity, and the person just made fun of me. Like that was, I don't know what the word is, Gregorian script or something. Like, I'm not a Harvard graduate. I didn't even graduate from high school. Um, I didn't know that that word was a big word. And then in the shelter last year, there was a woman who I said something about something being cumbersome, and she was like, "That's a big word," and I'm like, it was all over the news and the dailies. It was like a joke that a guy's name was cumbersome, you know. Um, I don't know. That sort of like that's just learning from people talking. That's not, I don't know. I don't like the sort of tone down your speech and your vocabulary so you don't sound a certain way. That's almost like reverse ebonics or something. Like people are trying to be uppity when they're just their regular self. And I don't know. I've never really thought of myself as being sort of uppity, but uh, maybe people interpret it as that because I'm usually very quiet and I don't say, you know, what I'm saying all the time, and I don't actually cuss when I'm speaking. I may do that in writing and when I'm extremely agitated, but in speech, I generally do not do that. And I sort of try to think about what I'm saying before I say it. And, you know, being in New England, you sort of have a certain way of speech that you have. And I don't know, I never really got into just being sort of like ghetto like that. Um, I guess I could pretend to be that, but I really don't like to act out in my life. I like to just be myself. Um, I would assume if I was speaking in thee and thou as a child that somewhere along the way there was some sort of, you know, proper English or something going on. And that just sort of sticks with you, I guess. Um, Selfless acts, jeez. I don't know. I immediately would begin to think about sex, to be honest with you, when someone said something about a selfless act. Because in a sexual relationship, especially that age and being sort of newlyweds, I would think that would be in your mind. That you would sort of be like, you would give a laugh, but you may not actually say it, but you'd just be sort of like, why would you ask me that, almost in a paranoid way, like you just did something. And at 23, I would think you'd be really kind of caught up in that as newlyweds. And putting down the toilet seat, I don't know, maybe that's just something that they came up with because they didn't have an answer to that. Were there other questions asked? Because that seems sort of, if you're going to do a show, that seems really not very entertaining. That you would just be like, can you have a selfless act like you're interviewing nuns and priests or something? And you could say something like, what's the funniest thing that the person's ever done? Or what's, I don't know, I'm not good at the questions. I'd have to think about that and come back with questions, but I would like to see something other than a selfless act, because when you ask people questions like that, you're gonna get a line of bulk malarkey is what you're gonna get, because people think they're supposed to give some sort of enlightened answer, and they're kind of like, if you're not just, you know, on the spot Jim Carrey funny, or, you know, you're sort of like, I gotta give some selfless act. That could be what they meant by putting down the toilet. Like they're trying to just be funny because the question is kind of like boring, and there's not really an answer to that. Um, I don't know. I guess boring like this video sort of has turned out to be. It's been a while since I've sort of been back into my regular jokey self. And sometimes in writing, that's actually a little bit better for me to do because I don't feel pressured under this clock going off or something like that. I don't know, it just seems to flow better on Twitter in terms of coming up with things that are funny than to do the videos. The videos seem more sort of like um, going over maybe what my mindset is. If people were sort of like, she's got to be out of her mind with this type of typing. It's like, no, it's not really like that. It's sort of like, um, frustration, like what the hell's going on here? And sometimes I feel as if they're trying to give me some sort of mental assessment, which becomes irritating too. That maybe they're not doing that and that's some sort of paranoia. But when you have people shutting down your Facebook and saying that they shut it down because you said something or you wrote something about Dick Cheney on your own timeline, I mean, how would Dick Cheney even see that? And you're logging me out of Facebook as I'm on it. Like you think I'm in some sort of a manic, uncontrolled psychosis or something, when that's not the case. Like you're not understanding, number one, creativity, and you're not understanding when someone is sitting in a room like this for 6.5 years, how they're going to deal with that. And that I was in a shelter where I was able to talk to people, and I don't know if it was just my sort of imagination, but they seemed sort of, interested in what was being said, and that maybe there was some sort of insight there for them to help them, and then that was put to a stop. And I don't know what is going on with the staff of that shelter, that they would not be sort of like, maybe we shouldn't have had her leave here. I don't know. But just taking more money, I guess. But um, in terms of what I'm supposed to be doing now, that you keep shutting off my ability to write, is irritating. Like, you don't determine that. You don't decide what my job is and how I do it. And you don't know why things are typed, as I've tried to explain a million times in one, why that's done. That it could be channeling other people, it could be sort of helping people that have all of these internal thoughts and ideas and think that they're bad people or think that they're crazy or think that people that seem well put together don't have, like, outbursts in their mind, and they don't have a journal, things like that. But yet the shutdowns still continue to go on, and it's like, from my view, your funny stuff on TV is not really funny. And even if it was some sort of a funny thing that was being done on Twitter, and I'm somehow not allowed to read it, why is that being done? As if I'm suddenly not allowed in the fun joke stream of some sort. So anyway, I guess you're gonna get this sort of thing that's kind of mundane, because you took away my creative tool.